Dark side of pretty privilege.
The bad part of having pretty privilege.
Pretty privilege.
Pretty privilege.
Privilege can just be so hard and like draining sometimes because like whenever I go outside, people are always staring at me.
Everyone talks about pretty privilege like it's just about pretty girls getting free drinks, compliments, followers, attention. Like it's this light, fun thing. But no one talks about what happens when you're on the other side of it. No one talks about how people treat you when they've already decided you're not worth looking at before you even open your mouth. And it's subtle. That's the scary part. It's in the way people respond to you, the way they look at you or don't look at you at all. And the craziest part, it's so normalized. People don't even realize they're doing it. So today, I'm not just talking about pretty privilege. I'm talking about the ugly truth behind it.
I feel like it's a lot of people out here that don't even know that they're attractive because of how many people probably tried to tear them down throughout the years, how many people probably sat up and spoke negatively about their looks to the point where they probably really think like it's no reason why I should even put effort into the way that I look because I'm not attractive.
So many of us envy the pretty girl, but here's what they don't tell you about being pretty. Pretty privilege can open doors, but it does not tell you what is on the other side of that door. As a divorce lawyer, I have learned something most people do not want to admit. Sometimes the door leads to opportunity, and sometimes it leads to a very bad room. Beauty is social capital. It gets attention faster. It gets invitation. It gets access. It gets you in rooms other people might have to fight to enter. But access and safety are not the same thing. A lot of women look at the pretty girl and assume she has it made. They think beauty is some kind of VIP pass to an easier life. She must have everything together. She must have the perfect relationship. She must be gliding through life like it's a movie montage with good lighting. Meanwhile, nobody asks what kind of room she is actually being invited into. Some of those rooms are not rooms you want to be in. Some of those rooms are full of people who see beauty as currency instead of humanity. Some of those rooms come with expectations attached. Some of those rooms feel less like opportunity and more like a trap. And sometimes it's not even a room. Sometimes it's an island. People love to envy the visible benefits of beauty, but they ignore the invisible risks that come with it. The attention, the projection, the assumptions, the way people feel entitled to someone just because they find them attractive. I see women compete with each other over beauty all the time, as if it's a limited resource. One woman gets attention, and suddenly the narrative becomes that she must have everything figured out. Meanwhile, she might be navigating pressures the outside world never sees. Beauty can be power, but it can also attract the wrong kind of power.
Before we get into the deeper side of this, I want to explain what pretty privilege actually is, because a lot of people think it just means pretty people getting attention. It's deeper than that. Pretty privilege is the idea that people who are considered attractive are treated better in everyday life, not just in obvious ways, but in subtle, almost invisible ways. People are more patient with them. They are more likely to be helped. They're listened to more. They're given the benefit of the doubt. And the reason for that is something psychologists call the halo effect. Basically, if someone is attractive, people automatically assume other positive things about them, that they're smarter, kinder, more capable, more interesting, even if none of that has been proven. So when you walk into a room, people aren't just seeing your face. They're assigning value to you instantly, and that value affects how they treat you before you even say a word. Pretty privilege isn't just about being admired, it's about being believed, heard, and valued faster.
Why does no one talk about how hard it actually can be to be a pretty girl? People talk about pretty privilege. They talk about it like it's a golden ticket through life. Like if you're pretty, everything must come easy and life just flows. But what people don't talk about is the other side of it. The part where being a pretty girl teaches you some of the hardest lessons about people. Because being pretty doesn't protect you from fake people. If anything, it attracts them. A lot of people assume life must be easy. They think everything falls in your lap. They think you don't struggle, you don't know hard work, and you don't go through real life problems. Like your life must be perfect just because of how you look. Another thing nobody really prepare you for is the jealousy. Sometimes people don't like you before you even say a single word. You walk into a room and you can feel the energy shift. You can feel the stares, the silent judgments, the assumptions. People create an opinion about you in their heads even before having a conversation with you, even before meeting you. They just assume you're stuck up, some assume you're shallow, some assume you think you're better than everyone else. But the truth is, they don't know you at all. Being a pretty girl teaches you to read people quickly. A lot of pretty girls have had to learn the hard way to protect their energy. They had to learn to tell the difference between genuine compliments and hidden jealousy. They had to learn how to recognize fake love from fake friendships and from fake intentions. They had to learn that not everyone wants access to them actually deserve it. Pretty privilege It might open doors, yes, but it doesn't guarantee real friendships. But when you start protecting your energy and setting your boundaries, suddenly you're arrogant or you're full of yourself. When really, you just learn your worth. People think pretty girls have it easy, but a lot of us have had to learn the hard way.
I don't know if this is a crazy take, but this is my opinion. I do not believe that pretty privilege is a real thing. I definitely don't believe that pretty privilege is the way people like portray it to be. Like, yes, being pretty might get your gas paid for from time to time. It might get you a lot of compliments in person and online. It might get you a free meal from time to time. But I've never seen somebody build a real substantial life off of being pretty, just off face card alone. Because be so serious, being pretty might get you a lot of attention. Because if that's what you want, then yeah, you're gonna get that. Being pretty might get you a lot of attention, but it doesn't secure respect. Being pretty doesn't build intelligence. It doesn't build good character. It doesn't build anything. Like, what are you besides your face, you know? And not to mention, most of the time, that privilege, that pretty privilege that people love to talk about is not really anything. It's just people lusting, projecting, and pretending to love you just because of what they see on the outside and not who you are on the inside. Not to sound like champ or anything, but like, they like you for what you look like, not who you are as a person. And that's temporary because, you know, when a guy says, oh, I like you because of what you look like, or a girl says she wants to be friends with you because of what you look like, that's why things like that is weird, because looks is not everything. And then on top of that, if you only like someone because of what they look like, what makes you think I don't think you're gonna find somebody else that looks better than me? You know, better than me, but like better than me, and leave. I'm not the only pretty girl in the world, and pretty privilege is literally nothing. I feel like it's just lust.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but nobody ever really talks about the dark side of like being attractive and being popular on social media. Like, you know how many people prejudge me without knowing me? It sucks. Like, some people think like I'm not fit for a relationship, I'm a player, I'm a hoe, I got a roster, probably had sex with a bunch of women. They just think all of these like prejudging things without knowing me at all, without getting to know my personality, getting to know my soul. And a lot of people lust over you without getting to know you at all. It sucks sometimes. People will treat you a certain way based on how you look, and just because you're popular on social media. Meanwhile, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. And I'm a humble ass man. I've been humble my whole life. People would think you're cocky, an asshole. People would think that you think you better than people, or like, if y'all knew how I was raised, y'all would know that would be far from the truth. Like, I wasn't raised to be like that, and I would never feel that way ever. No matter how many followers, how much money, how I look, that shit does not matter. Like, nobody talks about the fact that a lot of people will assume negative things about you instead of positive, just based on how you look and because you're popular on social media.
Okay, and I'm going to continue on this conversation about pretty privilege being a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword for the fact that, like, your pretty privilege definitely works against you, because it is invoking such a negative reaction, a reaction of hatred, a reaction of distrust, a reaction of who do you think you are? And a lot of it is rooted in racism, because you're challenging people's perceptions of beauty. And the fact of how dare you, who do you think you are? This is challenging my perception, and not everybody is going to react in that way. At the end of the day, beauty is beauty, but you're letting that treatment sort of cloud your judgment. It's like when I have these conversations, I know what people are going to say. It's like, so you're saying that women of color don't benefit from pretty privilege? Of course you do. Of course you do. But the thing is, when you're talking about pretty privilege, you're putting it in the same conversation as like an Alex Earl type of pretty privilege. You don't have that, sis. You don't have that, because you're dealing with so much bullshit in your real life that is fueled by racism, that's fueled by texturism, featureism, colorism, that's fueled by people's inability to not be able to reconcile the fact that they have been lied to, that their ideal of what beauty should look like is a fallacy. That's why you see, like, people who are in interracial relationships, how much hatred they receive, right? Especially when they're both attractive people, they receive a lot of hatred. Why? Because you're challenging people's perceptions of beauty. And like, again, I'm not saying that like this is a global phenomenon. I'm not saying that every single person in the world, every single person who lives in the West thinks like that. No, of course not. I'm not saying that you can't live life on easy mode still. But why can't we talk about the fact that you are dealing with a lot of bullshit, especially in workplaces, especially in like academia? Like, it's not a nice place to be, because people distrust you. Your pretty privilege is not the same as a pretty privilege of somebody who'd be considered an English rose, for example. Like, it's just not not. It's just not. Like, if you guys, I don't know if a lot of you, I'm sure a lot of you have seen, is that interview with Iman, and then they're basically saying to her, and this is another reason why I don't like this whole exotical versus unambiguous black. Like, it's just, we are all black. Like, and when we do this infighting, yes, I'm all for people having their spaces and acknowledging their privilege and acknowledging their own unique struggles, right? But beauty is beauty at the end of the day. And we can all lives matter this, because when you are even got a sprinkling of melanin in you, you're going to be othered. CC Meghan Markle, like, you're going to be othered. Like, you're going to be, it's going to invoke a feeling of absolute hatred and just disgust in people that you have the audacity to be beautiful and know it and move through society in the same, that they don't think that that should apply to you as beautiful as you are. So they'll start to do really weird things, like they'll start to try and discount your beauty or discount your blackness. And so if you guys have seen that very famous interview with Iman, and she's saying that, you know, like they try to equate me as like a white woman dipped in chocolate, and she was basically saying it's just so disgusting, and even the phrasing is really just absolutely disgusting. Like, I don't know what people's obsession is with to like exotify and like fetishize people of color.
There's this unspoken energy some people have toward you, like you don't deserve to feel good about yourself, like your confidence is offensive. So they try to humble you, not because you did anything wrong, but because they feel like you shouldn't have that level of self-worth. It comes out in small ways: backhanded compliments, passive-aggressive comments, people dismissing you or talking down to you. It's like they're trying to remind you where they think you belong. Some people don't react to who you are, they react to who they think you should be. One of the hardest parts is the lack of empathy. When something happens to you, people don't respond with the same care. They minimize it, they brush it off, they don't take your pain seriously. It's like your struggles don't register the same way, and over time, that makes you feel like your experiences don't matter. When people don't see your value, they also don't feel your pain. You can say something important and it just doesn't land. People talk over you, they ignore your ideas, they question your intelligence, and it's not always obvious, but you feel it. It's like you're constantly trying to prove something that other people are given automatically, and that's exhausting. You're not just speaking, you're constantly trying to be taken seriously. Some people are just mean, and not because of anything you did, but because of how they perceive you. They belittle you, make subtle comments, treat you with less respect, and it's confusing because you didn't earn that treatment, but you still have to deal with it. Sometimes, the way people treat you says more about their bias than your behavior. Not everything is said out loud. Sometimes, people don't say you're not invited. They just make sure you feel it. They leave you out of conversations, out of plans, out of spaces where you should feel included. And it's quiet, but it's loud at the same time because you notice it. Exclusion doesn't always speak, but you always hear it.
I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant right now because I have seen so many people and so many videos of people talking about like having pretty privilege and like the perks and the good of pretty privilege. I know a lot of people have probably went through some of the things I've been through when it comes to the bad part of having pretty privilege. And I feel like that's not something that's talked about enough. So I want to talk about it today. And yes, having pretty privilege comes with the perks, benefits, good experiences, things like that. But no one talks about like the dark side of pretty privilege. And I'm not just talking about the basic shit. I'm not talking about having haters and people being jealous of you. No. I'm talking about something a lot deeper. And this is specifically when it comes to men. Granted, I was with someone for like 12 plus years, my ex. And obviously in the beginning, I was super young, didn't really like comprehend a lot. I wasn't as self-aware as I am today. Towards the end of my relationship with my ex, I began to feel a lot of like hatred, jealousy, and like resentment, specifically when it came to like my sobriety, because he couldn't do it. And also when I gained more of a bigger following like on TikTok and I started getting like PR, brand deals, things like that. And he just got like super jealous regarding that. So now that I've been single for about 6 years, specifically when it comes to men, I have been experiencing this whole time attention and not intention. So what I'm trying to say is like, I feel like a lot of people, specifically men, don't like me for me. They like my image. They like the way I make them feel. They like the way I look. When people approach me, they approach me with desire and not depth. They approach me with curiosity and not care. They approach me with excitement and not consistency. I almost feel like I'm some type of substance that they need to take a hit of to like stroke their ego, or them thinking they're not valued or they don't deserve certain things in life, just to say they like experienced me and to say that they had me. not to build with me.
And I feel like a lot of people do not talk about the downsides of being attractive. You will literally go through the worst times of your life when you're around people who do not know how to handle being around someone who is attractive. You will go through the worst times of your life when you're around people who sit up and they undervalue themselves and they want you to undervalue yourself as well. People will gossip, people will lie on you, make up the worst stories on you. People will also put you in the worst situations known to man because they honestly would want to see you unalive. They would want to see you in the worst situation ever. And that's also another thing. Attractive people do not get grace. Okay, you will not receive the same grace that somebody else who isn't really as conventionally attractive would, because people are happy to see you going through something. People are happy to see you suffering. And, you know, some people will be like, oh, that's so narcissistic to think that way. But no, it's honestly true. People do not realize how disgusting it is to be jealous of someone. Having envy is like one of the worst things that a person can ever experience feeling. You know, so especially towards someone else because of their looks. Like, people will literally lose their minds trying to make you lose your mind because they do not want you to realize how beautiful, how handsome you are.
Pretty privilege is real, but it is also one of the reasons many women remain financially broke. Yes, beauty can open doors, it can attract attention, it can create opportunities, but here is what we rarely talk about. When you're constantly rewarded for how you look, you may delay building what truly pays. And here is the ugly truth. If all you have is pretty, the world only values you until someone prettier walks in.
You also either feel invisible or overly visible. People either stare at you, analyzing, judging, or they avoid looking at you completely. There's no normal, and that constant awareness of how you're being perceived, it gets heavy. You're either unseen or seen in ways that don't feel human. Before you even say anything, some people have already decided who you are. They assume you're slow, that you don't understand things, that you're less capable. So you walk into every situation already underestimated. You are judged before you're known, and that judgment follows you. Now, this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable because pretty privilege is real and it does benefit people, and ignoring that wouldn't be honest. Pretty privilege is not always ugly. There are people who have used it for their advantage. For example, Emma Grade, who used her pretty privilege to advance herself in her career.
I think she does enough work in the book to talk about being light-skinned, basically. And even though it's very clear that she did work very hard and that her working classness did impact her in terms of how seriously people didn't take her in the beginning of her career, it is also very clear that her proximity to being more palatable and attract. She does talk about being attractive, actually. Race has played a part in her success and like in being mixed in that sense. She does talk about meeting her husband, Jens, and it was to meet him at the time where she was in her career. She talks about being around him and his peers and how like it made her want to go that step further in terms of business and finances and understanding that aspect of business. Like, however, she hasn't quite got the balance right in terms of the conversation around hard work and proximity to whiteness.
I've just seen this video, right, and this lady is talking about Emma Greed's book, right, and she's talking about how much, like, Emma Greed talks a lot about being ambitious, kicking up your boots and getting on with it, and hard work, and how you get into these rooms and how you navigate business, corporate, whatever. But she doesn't talk about some of the advantages that she had, i.e. being attractive, being mixed race, and marrying a upper class, middle class white man. People knew that in order for you to be successful, it's not just about what you know, it's about how you look, how you present yourself, how you articulate yourself, and proximity. But I thought people knew this. Like, I think she didn't mention these things is because it's not like overtly palatable for everyone, because it's not for everyone, right? I think some of the general stuff that she talks about is like genuinely for women to be able to aspire to. But if you start getting into the intricate details, not everybody's going to have a seat at the table to understand this knowledge here. You have to be attractive, and you have to be deemed as society's understanding and notion of attractiveness, not what you think it is, but you just have to be palatable to everyone. You have to be attractive, standardly attractive to everyone. So you have to keep in shape, and you have to look good. You have to invest in yourself. You have to marry well. And I just did a video on this. You have to marry into middle upper class families. There's no compromising. You don't have to marry white, and you don't have to marry a white man, because I have seen black women move class, but you do have to move class because you need the proximity to wealth and a network that can pivot you. It has to be done. And I thought people knew this. You can't stay where you are. If you're trying to get somewhere, you need to go to where you're going. And I remember I have said this to all of my girls, but I had to reiterate this to one of my girls the other day. You need to marry someone who has backing. And if you're close to me, I've said this to you. You have to marry someone with backing. They either need to have backing on the front end or the back end. It's either they've got it or their family's got it. And you cannot sway on this. Even in this video, this lady talks about how through marrying the man that she married, the family were able to educate her on the financial literacies of her lane that she was supposed to go into. She was able to get her PhD. She was able to jump into business, and she's got multiple properties because they had the resources and the literacy to be able to back her like they've backed everybody else in that family. And she was able to grow and pivot. You need to marry well. You're going to have to move class. But Emma knew where she wanted to be. And in order to do that, there are other things that you have to do. It's not just about hard work. I don't know why she doesn't mention these things. I also think it's not for everybody, because not everybody has what it takes. I assume the reason why Emma doesn't talk about these other aspects is because it's not for everyone to understand. Not a lot of people are going to get it, because be amongst certain classes of people, you need to also be able to hold such conversation and have the intelligent capabilities to flow with the conversations that go on the table. You need to be able to fit in. You need to be able to get in where you fit in. You need to be able to be comfortable. You also need to be able to add to the conversation as well. And that's not going to be for everybody. Able to hold your own, and not many people are able to hold their own, especially in rooms that they're not used to and they're not comfortable in, right? And so for whatever reason, Emma doesn't talk about these things, which is race, pretty privilege, and the class that you marry into. They all work hand in hand to getting you to where you need to get to.
People who are considered attractive often experience the opposite of everything I just described. They walk into a room and people are more open, more friendly, more patient. They get better first impressions without trying. Opportunities come easier, jobs, networking, even simple things like being helped faster or treated more kindly. People assume positive things about them, that they're capable, that they're interesting, that they belong. And even when they make mistakes, they're forgiven more easily. They're given a chance. And that doesn't mean their life is perfect, but it does mean the world interacts with them differently. Pretty privilege doesn't mean life is perfect, but it means the world is a little softer with you. This isn't about blaming people who benefit from pretty privilege. It's about questioning why this system exists in the first place. Why does how someone looks determine how they're treated? A lot of times, a lot of it comes from media, from what we are shown is beautiful. From a young age, we're taught what is acceptable and what isn't. And without realizing it, we carry those biases into real life. We treat people differently based on how closely they fit that standard. And that creates a hierarchy where some people are naturally given more and others have to fight to be seen. We've built a world where how we look determines how human you're allowed to be. And after a while, it stops being about other people. It becomes internal. You start questioning yourself. Why am I being treated this way? What am I doing wrong? Is something wrong with me? You overthink interactions. You shrink yourself. You start believing the way people treat you. And that's the most damaging part, because it changes how you see yourself, not just how others see you. When the world treats you like you're less, it's hard not to start believing it.
It will never not be hilarious to me that there's an entire demographic of women who legitimately think that they have it so hard because of their pretty privilege. I couldn't stitch the video because the creator had them turned off, but the other day I saw this woman talking about the perils and downsides of being an attractive woman in society. And some of the things that she listed as example were that people think that she's intimidating and has RBF, or that she gets excluded from friend groups, or that she gets a lot of stares. But the funny thing about all of those examples is that none of them are exclusive to people who are deemed to be societally attractive. It's also important for us to remember that we are socialized to attach morality to looks. So, assuming that all of these judgments that are supposedly being made about her are true, what are the chances of any of those things negatively impacting her life? And the reason why it's not going to affect her life negatively is because those things are not seen as character flaws when they're attributed to someone who meets the beauty standard. She also said that a lot of the negative reaction she gets comes from women, and it's just sounding a lot like she's accusing other women of being jealous of how attractive she is. Like,
pretty privilege isn't just about beauty. It's about who gets treated like they matter. And when you're on the outside of that, you feel it in ways that are hard to explain. In the way people don't listen, in the way they don't look at you, in the way they decide who you are without even knowing you. And over time, that kind of treatment doesn't stay on the outside. It gets inside your head. It shapes your confidence, your identity, your sense of worth. But the truth is, your value was never supposed to be decided by someone else's perception of your face. And maybe the real problem isn't who is pretty. Maybe it's that we've been taught to treat people differently because of it. And until that changes, there will always be someone feeling invisible in a world that only sees beauty.
Has anyone noticed that no one over the age of 35 or so is chiming in on this pretty privileged discussion? It's young women. Y'all be forgetting that youth and beauty, they go together. Like a womp bamboo bop, a womp bamboo.
You are so right. We don't see a lot of old heads jumping in on this conversation. You see young people, they have a tendency to beat themselves up and also to compare themselves unnecessarily to others. I used to believe that I was a hideous beast growing up. Nothing was right based on the comparisons I made to females in magazines and what I saw on television. All of that used to really beat up on my confidence. It's not until I was older that I stopped tormenting myself. But now, when I look back on photos of myself when I was young, it was nowhere near as bad as I thought. You see, it's not until we're older that we realize that with all of the real or imagined flaws that we might have had at the time, that we were indeed cute, pretty, attractive, handsome, or even beautiful. But a lot of us will begin to realize that when you're my age. So where I'm at now, all young people are beautiful in my opinion. Youth is beautiful, no matter how we look at it. Plump, collagen-filled skin, healthy, clear, baggage-free eyes, lustrous and thick hair, a body that just goes and goes without any aches or pains, a body that responds so readily to diet and exercise. When we look back on these old photos, a lot of us have learned to apologize to ourselves. At least some of us have. But we all should, because the time when we hated ourselves the most, we then later come to realize how attractive we actually were.
Do you agree with all these points? Let's talk in the comments. Also, check my description box for the creators' handles. For now, kindly remember to subscribe and like and share my videos. Otherwise, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.